Now, NASA's unmanned Orion capsule has successfully splashed down in the Pacific after a 3-week test mission. The Orion spacecraft is part of the Artemis project, which aims to return astronauts to the moon. Our science editor, Rebecca Morell, reports on the end of a key stage of an ambitious program.
After a million-mile journey through space, our blue planet comes into view. It's time for the Orion spacecraft to come home. With images taken from the capsule just after it entered the Earth's atmosphere, Orion has travelled faster and hotter than any space vehicle has done before.
The spacecraft about to go subsonic.
A series of parachutes open, rapidly slowing the capsule down.
3 good main chutes for Orion. And there it is, high over the Pacific, America's new ticket to ride to the moon and beyond now in view.
Then Splashdown. The Artemis mission is complete.
From Tranquility Base to Taurus Littrow to the tranquil waters of the Pacific, the latest chapter of NASA's journey to the moon comes to a close.
We are adventurers. We are explorers. We always have a frontier. And that frontier is now to continue exploring the heavens.
3, 2, 1. And liftoff of Artemis 1.
The mission blasted off in November from the Kennedy Space Center on the most powerful rocket NASA has ever built. And over the course of 26 days, it performed a close flyby of the moon twice, capturing stunning images along the way, revealing remarkable detail of the lunar surface. The capsule also flew far beyond, further than any spacecraft built for humans. No people were on board this time. It's a test flight. Instead, mannequins covered in thousands of sensors recorded data from the voyage. And this is vital, because the next step is to get astronauts on board and eventually land them on the moon.
When you take, just like a test campaign, you take a bunch of small steps that add up to something amazing like this. Exploration's not going away. Humans have been exploring the Earth for as long as humans have been on the Earth, and we're going to continue exploring deep space.
Preparations are already underway for the next mission, with new crew capsules being built. We can have a look inside Orion's capsule to see what it's going to be like for the astronauts when the rocket eventually does have a crew. At 5 metres wide, that's more than 15 feet. It is big. It can accommodate 4 people inside. In fact, there's more than twice as much room as the Apollo astronauts had for their missions to the moon in the 1960s and 70s.
Roger on that. We leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return.
Today marks exactly 50 years since the last lunar landing by Apollo 17. Their footprints are still imprinted in the dust. No one thought it would take so long to return, but now others may soon be making their mark, as the moon is within humanity's sights once again. Rebecca Morell, BBC News.
Let's now speak to Ken Kremer, a scientist and journalist and founder of the website Space UpClose. He joins us live from Titusville in Florida near the Kennedy Space Center. Thanks very much for talking to us. So the Artemis mission is complete. How big a deal is this?
This is a huge deal. This had to be successful in order to move forward to the next missions, to send people around the moon and eventually walk on the moon again, as happened the last time 50 years ago. So they really needed a flawless test flight. The rocket worked perfectly. I was there, I watched it, and then went around the moon, took great pictures, collected great data. All of the hardware worked perfectly. And then just a few hours ago, it splashed down in the ocean. And that was the #1 objective of this mission, was test the heat shield coming in at 25,000 miles an hour and heating up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And would the astronauts, if they had been there, survive? And it all worked out perfectly, and the parachutes deployed and they recovered it. So now we can move forward to Artemis 2 and Artemis 3 and beyond.
Yes, Rebecca did mention in a piece there that there's already plans for the next missions. What's the next step for NASA now?
The next step is Artemis 2. I've seen that hardware at various NASA centers, and the Orion at the Kennedy Space Center. So they're building the next SLS rocket in New Orleans. It'll be shipped here early next year. Then they will combine it with the Orion later in the year. And then that mission, Artemis 2, will carry 4 astronauts looping around the moon. They won't go into orbit, but they'll go around the moon, about a 10-day flight. There'll be 3 Americans and 1 Canadian, so they'll be the first person, non-American, to fly. And Europe, again, will be involved in that, building the European Space Agency service module. And then, you know, in the future, then the astronauts will land, I should say, on Artemis 3, and European astronauts will fly eventually in the future, too.
And of course, zooming out to look at one of the key goals of all this is it's really about finding life beyond Earth. Why is that important?
Well, why is that important? That's like the most important question. Are we alone in the universe, right? We only know one type of life here on Earth. I'm a chemist. And what we want to do is find out if there is any life beyond the Earth, and if it is different. And if it is different, we can think outside the box, maybe make new medicines. I'm a medical researcher, so it'll give us a whole new way of thinking about things. So we're going to live off the land on Artemis 3 with the astronauts and future missions. They're going to drill into the lunar water ice. Then you have oxygen and you have air and you have rocket fuel, and that can carry you on to Mars. That's the most likely place that life could be in our solar system. And then we would explore beyond that too.
Much left to explore. Dr. Ken Kremer, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.